We have a very busy workshop this afternoon. We have 5 items to update you on, and we'll start with our Harmony Middle School. I'll turn it over to my Director of Design and Construction to introduce the team.
Before we get started, as Mr. Clinch indicated, the agenda is very tight. We have learned that 1 hour is really going to be pushing it for our facilities workshops as we move forward. So with the board chair's permission, we've extended some of the rest just to make sure that we have adequate time because of the exciting number of projects that we have coming forward.
Exciting indeed. So to start things off with, we're going to tell you a little bit about Harmony Middle School. We're very excited to say that we just had the bid opening, and Moss has done a superb job of getting very, very good coverage, which is the best thing that you can hope for in a project like this. You want good competition. It's the way you keep prices down. So we've got Patrick from Schinkel Schultz. Will kind of start things off for us, and Sherry will take over from there.
So one of the first things we want to go over on Harmony Middle School is just give a design update overview. The site plan really hasn't changed since you all saw it last, just as a recap of where we're at. The only thing I'll note is that we did identify the concession building and the track as bid alternates. So there's building 3, which is the concession building here, and this track is identified as an alternate in the drawing, so they'll price it out. But as of right now, it's shown on the site plan. Again, in rendering of the front door, nothing has changed since you all saw it last. It's the same exact design, same entry. Even with the VE, nothing has changed from that.
And just real quick, we still kept the additional practice field for the high school. We thought that there would be some cost savings, maybe getting rid of that. As it turned out, just moving the dirt around, it worked out in our advantage, and Moss helped us out figuring that out right away. So it's still in the program. It's not an ad alternate. It's in the program.
Just the status of the permits. Essentially, all of the South Florida water permits, Fish and Wildlife, are all underway and tracking. The only thing that we want to point out is the status of permits for Army Corps engineers. As it stands right now, for the wetland mitigation, there's essentially 2 paths we can go by for the Army Corps. The first one is called Path A, is SDOC purchasing credits from the mitigation bank, and this is kind of as we had originally anticipated, and that was the opening or being able to start construction in January. There was a potential project cost for that associated with buying these credits, these federal credits, that we had estimated roughly $875,000 because of the size of those wetlands.
How much are we losing?
The total acres, John, do you know? 7.5 acres. So, I mean, we knew from the beginning that the site was the majority of it was wetland area, so this was always kind of the anticipation that we were going to have to mitigate a large portion of the wetlands. Option B on here, Path B, is essentially doing an off-site mitigation with Harmony Development. There's an off-site area we can purchase credits for. The downside to this is there's several. There's a schedule impact to doing it this way. If we do have to purchase off-site credits, it pushes it back about 2 months, so the permit won't be received until March. There's also some other.
How much would we pay for those?
Sorry?
How much would that cost us if we have to buy it from Harmony?
There's a lot of different factors, and a lot of it is depending on what the value of the off-site mitigation credits are. So that's one thing that we have Austin Environmental and Civil Engineer looking at right now.
And that's really more of a South Florida water management issue. Right. We have to get through South Florida first. They have to sign off, then we go through the Army Corps. The Army Corps is straightforward. We have that in hand. It's just strictly dealing with South Florida right now that is the issue. And we can either purchase already available mitigation credits that are virtually as soon as you pay for them, they're ready to permit. Everything's done. Or we can work with Harmony, and then we have to do all the real estate transactions and go through that process, which is what makes us think it'll be another 60 days if we go that route. But we'll have quite a cost advantage going that route.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it
however,
200 versus 875?
We won't know for sure until we get them assessed. We've already started discussions with South Florida, and Austin Environmental has, and it looks like we might get perhaps 5 credits of the 6.25 that we need. So that would be, a good first step. So we'd only have to pay for the 1.25 credit.
So this is a little over 6 credits. So they're 100.
So we potentially could save up to $500,000 if all the stars align and and it's really, really good. However, the lands that we're talking about are already wetlands. So the value of them as a conservation area isn't quite as good because they kind of feel, well, they're already wetlands, they're already going to be protected because they're wetlands. So that's why we're having this.
There are several moving parts to each of the options. We will vet through both of those because the option B has a time component as well. We would not be able to go to construction until late March. And the board's guidance was to get this project into construction as soon as possible. So, and that being the case where we could have some additional acceleration costs if we go into construction later. So we will weigh all of these options and provide a final accounting for both options.
Are there other wetland banks we can buy from? Because there's other ones in the county are being.
Yes, again, we don't want to get too far in the weeds.
No, this is pretty important. It's a 2-month stop.
South Florida
And it's $500,000.
has a bank that they would like us to use. And that's one reason why they would like to push us in that direction. That would be this option A. We would still have to go through all the process of acquiring the
That's
property.
what's good for South Florida. What's good for what? Do we have to do what South Florida asks us to do or not?
Well,
I mean,
we
if it's
have to-
not good for
They
us.
have to permit, they can't keep us from using our credits if we get them. They'll just try to encourage us to use theirs. As Mark said, the biggest impact is time. It is a money issue. We always knew it was going to cost that much money. We have this other option of getting the credits from Harmony. Don't know what they're worth. Once we have more information on exactly what South Florida is willing to allow in credits for that property, that will probably sway our decision. And then we'll come back to you and say, look, here's all the facts. It's going to cost this much in money and this much in time, and here's our recommendation. So, but we're not quite there yet.
When do
But
you
we just wanted you to be aware that we're working through this
When do you
problem.
anticipate being there?
Well, we've already started conversations with South Florida. That's really going to be the linchpin. The other piece is how long it takes to get all of the real estate things squared away through the Harmony transaction. One of the downsides of doing that is we'll be responsible for that land forever. If we pay the money and use the mitigation bank credits, we're free. You know that we don't have any responsibility going forward. So there's a lot, as Mark said, a lot of moving parts, and we'll do a thorough analysis and come to you with a recommendation.
What's
We're not
our
quite there
engineer
yet.
say? Is this Osceola engineer doing this?
Yes.
Yes, and our environmental consultant is in the room, Austin Environmental.
Well, I mean, the mitigation's always been pledged in the quad party agreement from Harmony. We found out about that in early July. You have to assess the site. There was the potential sale, and as I described, it kind of delayed things. But anyways, Austin Environmental went out last week and assessed the site, and they talked to the Water Management District today, because that's what we needed to know was what the potential value of this was worth. And he feels it's up to $500,000. So that, you get that, and that would pay obviously a portion of those credits. The Army Corps credits you're going to be buying anyway, because they don't accept dedication for mitigation. So you're going to make it up with the mitigation bank buying credits from them. Now, going back to what they were saying about the district wanting us to buy from a certain bank is actually potentially to our advantage, because they'd like to close this bank out. So we may have to actually buy fewer credits at a cheaper price. So there's a deal to be worked out that hasn't been.
Yeah.
Nathan, if I speak out of turn, please.
No, that's
So there is a little bit more research that needs to be done, so we do get the district the best deal for mitigation for this site.
So,
Thanks, John.
yeah, and let me add, I think where you were going, Clarence, is what I'd want to know when we get to that point is the pro and the con on both with real cost associated with both, including the time and the dollars cost with the delay in start. And I want to be able to look at that very objective empirical information and make a decision based upon that, not based upon any other assumptions that may be tied to it.
And we've already reached out to Moss. We believe that the bidders that we're dealing with right now would be willing to extend their bids for the foreseeable time that we would need. So we're in good
Is
stead
Path
there.
A starting January 2nd and Path B starting March 31st?
Yes.
Well, Path B is
So
starting
it's a full
sometime
three.
after. We don't know for sure. It'll
Sometime
depend
around
how
March
long it
20th,
takes
late
to do all
March.
the real estate
So it's a full
transactions.
3, we lose almost a full 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that we have a 60-month schedule, which is about right for a middle school. But then when you factor in the substantial site work that we have to do, a good 2 months of site work, it could push us into an acceleration issue, and then it increases the risk to the district for being successful on this project.
Is there any of the site work we can do like we did at Boggy Creek where we could do it early?
We could do an early site package, however, we are trying to keep it together, one GMP.
Did my comments capture your thoughts as
Yeah,
well?
I think so.
Okay.
Something doesn't feel right.
This is just a status of the documents. We've essentially gone through, we're in the bidding process, like Mark mentioned. We've issued the bid set, we've gone through addendum number 1, and we also have issued addendum number 2 to respond to pre-bid RFI comments and other things to the bidding process. So Sherry will talk about that a little more, but essentially we've received bids already.
But the drawings were very clean. We did not get a large volume of comments, which was a good thing.
Just a quick update on the trade contractor outreach. So we had 2 outreach events. We got pretty good coverage. We sent it to over about 525 subcontractors, ABC. We also advertised for it. I think the first initial was a little more about understanding the project as a high level and also doing business with Moss. And a little bit more about the project in the second phase. When we did the outreach, we had about 20 new subcontractors that attended that. Pretty good coverage, and you'll see when we get to telling you about how many bids we got, you'll see that the coverage was very good based on these outreach program. The update on the pre-construction services, so we did advertise in 2 of the newspaper, Orlando Sentinel and Osceola, 3 consecutive weeks. And we did detailed scope sheets. We sent out an invitation to bid. We contacted the subcontractors, and we put together scopes and sent that to them as well. We had received, I think, over 525 bids. Or invitations went out, and we've got about 215 bids. And what I would say is all the majority trades, so your structural steel, your concrete tilt wall, your MEPF trades, your roofing, your envelope, all of those were probably at least 5 bids. So we got about, I would say on the high side was 5. There was a few trades that we had gotten 7 and 8 bids in, but the majority were around 5. Some of the smaller packages were about 3 to 4 bids.
Excellent coverage.
So you want to get at least 3. That's what you're shooting for. When you're bidding in a heavy environment, when there's a lot of other work going out there, you might only get a couple in each one of the major trades. So it was a good window for us to hit for the bid opportunity.
Thank you. The next update will just be kind of a history of the estimates at our last workshop. I think we had discussed, we had provided a DD estimate as well as the 100% estimate. I think we, and then we're currently ready to submit the GMP on November 12th, I think, November 13th, for this next one. Just a quick cost and schedule.
Yes.
Yeah. From our scheduling, as you can see, we sent out the invitation to bid on September 14th. We are right now currently taking the sub bids that we received on the 12th of last week, and we're going through those, and we'll start meeting with subs and making sure that we're comparing apples to apples for scope. And then we will submit our GMP. It says the 15th, but we've decided to submit that a little bit earlier, so we'll be submitting that on the 13th. And then it goes to owner review, and then the school board, our goal is to get it in for the 12th. We want to be able to start writing contracts and awarding so that we can start getting submittals going, getting materials released, direct owner purchase on the front end.
This says January 21 to March 21. That's 2 months, not 3 months. I asked that question.
As opposed to January 1st.
Right, and March 31st. Is this right, or is the January one right?
Yeah, and that goes back to the option A and B, where if we received, went through the one route to get the permits quicker, the the faster route, we'd be looking at a late January construction notice to proceed. And then, per the original schedule, if the permitting would have taken the full 12 months, late March.
So that was misspoken before. Got that caught.
That's it.
Board members have any other questions on the Harmony project?
Yeah, you have substantial completion on the 27th of June, final completion on October 25th.
We'll still be working on some ball fields.
That'll be ball fields.
And punch list work.
Gotcha.
The owner will have full occupancy
We'll
of the
have-
site
we'll have
for the start of the
substantial
school year.
Okay.
When are you topping it off?
I think we're looking at dry end for building one roughly, if we start in January, we're looking about probably August, late August for building one. And then I believe building two, we were looking at roughly for dry end around September, the end of September. If we start in January, obviously that'll push a little bit, I think, to the point that was discussed is, obviously if it does push, you start getting into the rainier season, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't get wet in Holy Fall.
Looking for some project details.
Oh, I know.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
Okay, next up, we have the Michigan Ave Elementary School Comprehensive Renovation Update. Mark, you want to introduce the team? How are you doing?
From Song, we have John Quattrone, and he'll give us a real quick update.
Good afternoon, and this is the clicker. Okay, and left advances. Is that correct?
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah,
You
okay.
just got to really push it.
Yeah,
There
okay.
you go.
Thank you for having us. We'll keep it moving because we know your schedule is tight. So our agenda is to give you a project overview, talk about the process of communication with the end user group, show you some renderings, look at the site plan organization, then our CM here, Clancy and Thays, will talk about phasing and how that'll work during construction. We'll review the floor plans quickly, look at our schedule, and then we'll take questions from you. So it is based on a 948-student elementary school program. There is a shared dining facility with St. Cloud Middle School. There will also be a central shared chiller plant, which will be designed so that additional chillers can be dropped in when the middle school project comes online. The site will have a full play area and full PE component. The food service building or the multi-purpose building will have a community use potential with it. There are 3 ASD classrooms, 2 VPK, 3 ESC resource, 6 standard resource, 3 skills labs, one of which is STEM related, and it's about an 18.5 acre site development. We have had 6, and I think at this point it's actually been 7 intense user workshops with all of the departments that you see there on the screen. It's virtually everybody who would have an interest in the project and be an end user, and we received just a great deal of input from them in these workshops. Also, outside of the school district, our civil engineers have communicated with the City of St. Cloud, transportation and utilities officials, and we have also worked closely with the permitting officials and the building code officials within the district. This rendering will give a general idea of the character of the school. It's still in development just a little bit, but that's a pretty good representation. And the site here, it's a little bit compressed in this direction on the screen. But the yellow line shows the boundary of site disturbance. The purple lines show anticipated off-site improvements. We're creating a new entrance there at that intersection that you see, and that will also be the entrance into the middle school project as the middle school gets developed. So there's a little bit of shared infrastructure here in this project. In terms of, now we've turned north now to the top here. You can see building 1 is the new building, new classroom building. Building 2 is that shared elementary school and middle school dining building, which has the community use component to it. Building 3 is an existing building that will be renovated to some degree and upgraded. It will get a new roof. It will get put on the chilled water system. The DX units that are serving that right now will be removed and replaced with chilled water. The parent stacking is to your left, and it drops off there in front of building 2. The bus loop is there to the right. It intersects with a walkway canopy that goes in and serves building 1 and building 3. The play area is on either side of building 3 with a large play field there to the top, and with the basketball courts and youth lot there to the bottom of that. And then the top lot is, let me see if this works. Yes, it does. Well, it doesn't work on the screen. The top lot is located in a secure courtyard, and we'll show you that on a larger plan. With that, we will have our CM talk about phasing.
So obviously,
This is Bill Zecker from Lansing Phase.
so, hey guys, so this is a little bit different. It's not a greenfield site, so it's a comprehensive replacement project. So it's a little bit different. There's some phasing that needs to be done to make sure that we don't disrupt the educational process. So one of the things that we're currently doing, and as you can see here identified in the blue area, is it's kind of an early works package that we're recommending. It's not something that we've actually done yet, but we're recommending doing. And the purpose of that is to allow for things such as a covered play area that's down there in the area where the new buildings are going to go. There's some outside also playground equipment areas that need to get relocated, along with circulation that needs to be done so that the school can continue to operate while we're working. So our recommendation is to break this phase out. This phase would be accomplished during the holiday period while the kids are on break, where we would do the majority of this work. The covered play may not be able to be completely done, but we'd get the court surface done. We may have to come back at a later date to actually erect the structure over that once the building was available. But because of the tight timeline, as you can understand, the building wouldn't be available the day that while they're gone on break. So the next phase, as you can see now, it's the blue area representing where the new buildings go. So building 2, as you heard, was the combined dining facility with the middle school, along with building 1. So those would be under construction, and that period of time would be ongoing from the end of January, and we're recommending trying to turn that phase of the project over for the school year of 2019 school start. So in August of 2019, that would be turned back over. The next phase would be then to go back into the remaining portion of the campus, demo the existing building, expand the parking for the teachers and the bus loop area that goes in the back area along with the fields. Those areas would be concentrated to be done during that summer window. So that would actually occur in that summer of 2019, before they start school, we would actually be doing that work. So the bus loop and the new parking areas would be returned back to the school. However, the field, we may be still finishing, cleaning up and doing over the next month or two after students are back in session, but it would be a less disruption on the students at that point. We would certainly be just doing some minor grading and landscaping, if you will.
And that's when we'd have to deal with the vandal watch.
Yes.
That would have to be removed from the site. Prior to that phase.
Thank you. We are scheduled to have our 90% documents completed tomorrow, and we are on schedule for that. So we've maintained the schedule throughout this. 100% documents out for bidding on November the 15th. Then we'll go through the addendum process in early December, and the conform documents signed and sealed and permitted documents on the 15th. If you want to talk a little bit about the GMP process then beyond
Sure.
that.
So, when we get the final set of documents, we'll obviously start the GMP process. We'll do our advertising, which will span over a 3-week window. We'll take about that period of time, we'll receive bids back in. And then we'll take a few weeks to do the scope reviews of those bids at that time, and then assemble our GMP. And our current plan right now is to have the GMP approved in the first January board meeting, so that we can start construction at the end of January. That's our, certainly feel confident that we can make those dates. One of the things that we will be doing is we will be holding an outreach program for all of the local subcontractors. We have a long-standing relationship here in the county with many of the local subcontractors, so we feel comfortable to certainly gain all of that ability, but we'll again do another outreach. And our plan right now is at the beginning of November, we'll actually have that. We'll hold there, actually, our first one. And we'll probably do one other probably in the middle of the bidding period.
And we'll turn it over to you for questions.
How old is Building 3, the one we're keeping?
80s.
I just can't remember.
Early 80s.
Yeah, I think it's 86 actually, but it's in the 80s.
So
It-
30 years old?
It was not old enough to Castaldi, so we have
So
to
how much are we
keep
putting
it.
into it?
We can get a breakout
It
of those
was
costs.
roughly about $2 million that we were between the roof and all the interior
And I
finishes.
think at this point, we have VE'd some of that out at this point, so I think it's a little bit less than that
It's a
at
little
this
less
stage.
now. It is a little less now. I mean, that was where we were at
Yeah,
60%.
maybe about 1.7, somewhere around 1.7.
Try to get rid of the pink.
Yeah.
I got a question. When do we start St. Cloud Middle?
It will start as the phase 2 of this project finishes. In fact, after the first of the year, we'll be thinking about going out for our design RFQ, and then second, third quarter, our CM RFQ.
Under the premise that it's going to open in August of 19?
This, yes, Michigan Ave will, first phase will be, make sure I get my dates correct, January.
20 or 21 on that.
No. I'm sorry, I don't have my date.
No, you're right.
So we're going to start this December. The actual construction NTP is January. It's 1 year for phase 1, which is building 1 and 2.
For
And then-
Michigan Avenue, not
Yeah,
St.
Michigan
Cloud
Avenue.
Middle. St. Cloud Middle is
And then
out.
there's a phase 2 for Michigan Avenue to raise building 1 and to build out the rest of the site amenities, renovate building 3. That
That'll go
lands
through
in the
the summer.
summer. So.
Summer of 19.
In the summer of 19, so
We're
we
showing
will,
August 1st of 19 to complete all phases.
our substantials are always, late
Correct.
June, early July.
And we would look to be starting St. Cloud that summer.
Yeah.
So are we going to be deploying modular classrooms while we're under construction?
They won't be needed. The existing school population, our most current focus enrollment is about 621. The new building 1 is going to be about 731.
Okay.
So we'll be able to house
Everyone
all
will
the
fit in
students
the
in
new
building
building, the way
1.
we have it
I understand.
planned right now.
Okay, good.
Which will allow us to then go and renovate building 3. But we do anticipate the enrollment, expanding for the school in the future, which is what we're building
So
for.
are we using any impact fees for the new enrollment portion? Or is it all-
No.
No, it's all sales tax.
It's all sales tax.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good afternoon.
So everybody's playing the Meadow Wolf in 58 seconds so far.
Good afternoon. Go ahead and pass those.
Dodson?
Maybe it's like a saber-tooth tiger on the front.
That would have been a nice touch.
Yes, it would have. The Predators didn't use saber-tooth tiger. Or never brought it.
I think it should be in.
Yeah, it's
included-
already
should be
in the
your-
overall
should be in your
presentation.
packet.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, from what I understand, we got to be brief, and so we'll kind of move on through pretty quick. But we did just want to give you an update on where we currently are. We had a walkthrough about 2 weeks ago. Dr. Pace, you were there, and Mr. Wheeler had a great walkthrough, and so kind of where we are from that point. Last time we were here, we were going forward with our GMP for the last GMP, which was the fit-out package. So I think that was in March. When we were here in March, I looked back at the aerials for March, and we were just going vertical at that point. So currently, where we stand as of today, all 11 buildings are vertical. All the roofs are in place. I wanted to say that we were dried in on everything, but we had the ends of the buildings open, but all the windows are in place, so we're looking real good. Project is on schedule for June 14th, 2018, substantial completion. Important to note, though, is that we did permit the buildings all separately, so that way, as they become available and as they're completed, we can start to turn those early. So we're looking at turning the first building over, which is Building 5, which is a classroom building, in April. So that'll be the first one, and then it'll be followed probably by the cafeteria, and then go into 6 and 7, which are classroom buildings. Last building to turn over will be the auditorium building, and currently we're on schedule to turn that over on the 14th of June. Go ahead and go to the aerial, but we do on the site, all the ponds are now complete. We did obtain DEP clearance for all the fire hydrants on site, so that's moving along nicely. The road work on site is starting to progress now, and we're actually, I think we've done quite a bit of off-site improvements as well. KUA is starting to install the transformers around the site, so we're getting ready for permanent power. Currently, we've been running off of temp power. So this is the photo of the aerial. This was taken on, it's like September 26th. So as you can see, all the ponds are in, all the buildings are standing. Fields are starting to now take shape. Site lighting is going into on the fields, so that's they're being set right now. That's just a look of the front of the campus off of Boggy Creek. So we're moving. Like I said, everything is on schedule currently, and we're tracking on budget. Is that 3 minutes?
Yes, that was good. Nice job,
Who's
Eric.
gonna walk through this?
But no, I just wanted to see if there was any questions.
No.
So can you move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Mr. Board Member Thacker, you had a question about ODP and how it's being turned back to the project, so this is to address your question
Okay,
from the
good.
last board.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't just ODP, but when we bid the project out, we found that we were substantially over budget, around $4 million. So we went and did a very in-depth value engineering effort. Some of it was truly value engineering. We found out cheaper ways to do things and didn't really lose any functionality out of it. Some of the things, however, were just basically cutting scope items out or changing to a lesser product that didn't really meet our standard, but it was something that would be serviceable, and we entertained the idea to get us within budget. As we closed out the earlier phases and got those allowances back, and as we realized our tax savings from our ODPs and our buyout savings, Gilbane has been pushing hard from the very get-go, from the very first package, to better the bids, if you will, and to squeeze every penny they could out of the construction side of the budget. So in doing that, we identified early on with Schenkel Schultz, with our architects, and with Gilbane, we identified a number of items that were near and dear, that we really didn't want to give up. We needed to go this route so we could sign a contract that was actually doable. But knowing that we were going to get more money back through buyout savings and tax savings, and as we did that, we were able to return these items back into the project. So the landscape...
Is there still a block of items that were originally in there that we've still got?
Everything that we identified that we wanted to buy back, we achieved. We were able to buy back. A lot of very important things like the covers for the CTE areas. And we really needed to get that back in the job.
Traffic signal.
The traffic signal, which we didn't know if that was going to be done separately. We really wanted to get that in the project so we didn't have any coordination issues with multiple contractors. We were able to do that, and that was a big chunk, almost $400,000.
It was. And that was it. And I only bought that right back. And we are hitting contingency a little bit, but it hasn't been too bad to this point.
And another decision that we made early on was to limit our contingency to far below what we were really comfortable with, but we felt it was better to buy program and cheat ourselves a little bit on contingency, thinking, well, we've already been through the build-out phase, so this, the site package, most of the real uncertainties were kind of dealt with already, so we didn't really leave ourselves with much contingency to work through. And that, I believe, was a smart decision to make, because again, we got to keep the program. Having said that, though, we don't have a lot of contingency to make changes with, so we want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
However, we had a very extensive period during the design where all the stakeholders had ample opportunity to provide input, so there shouldn't be a lot of that. It's a very well-defined design.
I will say we're doing very well with tax savings. We had a projected amount up front, and we've exceeded that and continue to exceed it. So we've done a great job at getting the tax savings.
In fact, you'll see a change order, a deductive change order this evening on the board agenda for another deductive ODP change order, bringing us to nearly 21%.
And we're not done.
Not done. Still going. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, good job.
Mark, you want
Okay,
to cover the STEM?
Next update is for the demonstration STEM high school. First, we are looking at the phase one, I'll call it, with the 100 students that will arrive for the school year next year, the 18-19 school year. We're looking at the provisions to put them in the county's 4-story building. In the event that that facility is not yet completed, we are investigating a backup plan for the minor league facility right here off of Bill Beck Boulevard. We've identified a floor plan for that existing space that is very workable. In fact, it even includes a small kitchen. So we're feeling good about that. We're moving forward with the FF&E for the phase one as well for those 100 students to outfit the labs, the admin suite, etc. And all these items will move to the permanent 500 student station building once that's completed. So the 500 student station building is the one that I really would like to talk to you about now. We've issued several purchase orders for, thank you, I'm sorry, for surveying, geotech, and the phase one environmental. In fact, the preliminary geotech, the field work was completed today. So they will now complete the lab work to see where we're at with soils on that site, on that 5-acre site. We've completed several meetings with the county to work at siting, providing our site boundaries. Our surveying company that we'd hired, Hanson, Walters and Associates, has been very helpful in that task. They have not started their surveying work, but they've been working between the school district and the county to identify the boundaries for that site. And as that's completed, then we'll move forward with the platting process for the 5-acre site. So this is buildings sited adjacent to the street, and that was the first criteria from the county per their master plan. So if you recall back on the 9/19 board meeting, in that the presentation we provided, we showed two options. One, to site the buildings adjacent to the street, like it is shown on the bottom left-hand corner, and another to skew those buildings at an angle. The purpose to skew the buildings would be for the ultimate collection of solar, should we locate a solar partner and able to move forward with that component. However, with the building siting, we can still make the solar work. Again, we are building a high-performance building. The district is committing to that, and then we are looking to a partner for the solar piece so that we can bring the building to a full zero energy compliance standard.
Isn't this KUA service territory?
It is, yes, sir.
And that they...
We are in the process of setting a meeting with KUA, and we have an ongoing partnership with KUA. Early on, we established 3 objectives in that partnership. 1, energy education. two to do a large scale solar array, and 3 to pilot a zero energy building. So this project fits perfectly into the objectives that we established for that partnership.
Question back to you then. No, I agree. I think it's very exciting. Is Gainesville Regional Utility, they're relatively progressive for a municipal utility, and you got FMPA right around the corner. I mean, if we contacted GRU to see how because they have a tariff in place where they can purchase solar. If you've got solar in your house, you produce more energy than you use.
Yes.
You've got to sell it back to them.
Right.
Have we contact them to see how that works?
Yes, I
and
had
share-
previously, and what I had learned is solar was installed on 10 Alachua County schools through the GRU tariff. However, that's a lease, a roof lease program. So the school district gets X amount of revenue per year over a 20-year
It's like a
period,
royalty.
I believe it is.
Right, but okay, and I appreciate that, but I guess what I'm alluding to, and I wasn't clear, they've got a program for residential also. In residential, if a home gets solar and they generate more power than needs, it's not a royalty, it's actually based on.
It's a buyback.
What's that?
KUA buys it back.
Okay, well, that's what I want to make sure. Typically, they've got a schedule, they've got to get a tariff approved for it. I don't know if KUA's got, I mean, it's not a problem getting it approved, but you got to actually file it. So we got to make sure that they've got that so that we can move forward with it, and if they don't, then maybe we need to go talk to some other people at KUA.
And we are in the process of getting a meeting set at their board level, at the high level to talk those particulars.
And just so you know, part of that too is, as you know, Chair Hardy, his term ended on September 30th, and so we're in the midst of the transition. He was really a key component for us in advancing those conversations. So we're working now to kind of get the right new person there that's going to be the champion for us to help move it through.
And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Weishire's been very helpful with that.
No, that's good insight to me. I wasn't aware of the transition there.
Yeah. Literally 2 weeks ago.
No, I get it.
We had a shift.
Like I said, I didn't know.
The other main criteria for the county was to site all parking and the bus loop behind the buildings. So in this site plan, as you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, but that 5-acre site, every square inch of that site is filled up with the additional room for the parking, and the bus loop is hugged right up against the buildings. You can see the first building to the right identified as fall of 19. That would be our Phase 1 building. And then the future, we are going to incorporate provisions into the site for a future 3-story, 45,000 square foot building to replicate the one that we're going to build in Phase 1, thinking that as the STEM high school starts, like OXA, it will really take off, and we'll have the provisions built in to expand that site. As far as parking, we have taken up every single opportunity for parking. And this works with the rationale that high school, grades 9 through 12, that likely the freshman and the sophomore would not drive. So that leaves the juniors and the seniors about 50% driving. The rest would ride the bus. This is set up for hub transportation. And in the future, if we expand, the thinking is that it would expand to middle school. So obviously middle schoolers don't drive, which is why this plan works on a very tight 5-acre site. The design RFQ went out on Friday, so that is on the street. We have a very aggressive schedule to work through the selection process. The shortlisting meeting will be on November 27th, oral presentations on December 6th. We'll take an award recommendation to the board meeting on December 12th. Thank you, Chairman Soto, for assisting with that schedule. So the morning of December 13th, we will be issuing a letter of intent to our designers and getting to work. Very aggressive schedule for design and construction, a 7-month design schedule, assuming that we would have a design NTP by the board meeting, the only board meeting in January. It looks like that will be January 16th, not published yet, and a 10-month construction schedule.
Question for you. You're talking about a 45,000 square foot 3-story building, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many square feet is the three-story building at Liberty now that we've got already in the three-story building we're looking at Tohopacola? I mean, is that 45,000 or is it more?
Offhand, I don't know. It's one of the smaller classroom buildings in the cluster of the three. I'd have to research and get back.
All I'm saying is that if we've got something already that's 45,000 square feet relative to the time crunch that we're in, it may be simpler than reinventing the wheel.
Absolutely. And given the very compressed design schedule, it will behoove firms to come in with something that they already have in their inventory.
But again, I would encourage, I'd like to know what the square footage is of the three-story building at Liberty now. I mean, that's when, we have that now. It's not something we got to go into another county and take a look at.
Obviously, a part of our responsibility with this site at Neo City is to align the standards that we have for this building and its design to the standards that they're using for the other buildings on the property within their master plan, as well as achieve the zero energy piece. So we can't really take our wing and plop it down there and make it work for this.
But there's modifications to be done.
It can be modified. And also keep in mind that this is going to be a highly immersive learning environment. So those spatial relationships will be quite different.
No, I
from what we've seen in the
understand.
past.
It's not apples and apples necessarily, but it's also not apples and rocks.
Yes.
It's going to be exciting.
Well, two technicals.
Two questions. The county building, you may have said at the beginning, I know you alluded to it, but did you mention how they're tracking on construction and what our concerns may or may not be?
It's the four-story building identified just below the farm building.
Right.
And what I've been told by the program manager for the county, it's an 11-month schedule from the start of design. So that includes the design and the construction piece. And the designer that was selected is Schenkel Schultz Architects, and the CM is Skanska. But that will be a very fast-track project as well.
And that's 100 students to open?
Yes, sir.
Hence the need for us to potentially have the minor league baseball facility for the first 6 to 8 weeks of school. But our goal is to absolutely be in that space for those 100 students by October FTE.
And how quickly after that would we go to full capacity at that school? We're doing 100 phase-in first year, and then second year, will we do a grade a year? Is that the...
Primarily a grade a year. Although we are still in discussion as a curriculum team as to whether or not we'll consider opening with freshmen and sophomores the first year and grow it from there.
Good.
The more, the better, the quicker, the better.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions on the STEM high school? Okay. Nope. We'll move to our district-wide redistricting update. Ms. Rhonda Blake will join us at the table, our Director of Planning. Rhonda and her team have been very busy with conducting several very successful redistricting meetings.
The most loved lady in the county, right?
We've completed those and now ready for our public hearings.
Good evening. Just a brief update. The two public hearings are just around the corner. The first one will be November 7th at 5:30. It will strictly be for the Neptune students to Denjon Middle. And then the two high school redistrictings are for November 14th, once at 5:30. That's the new high school. And then there'll be another public hearing at 7 on the same evening for the celebration to Poinciana. We did have 3 different meetings going on. We broke them out into 3 committees. The first committee was for New Tohopacola High. That included Gateway High, Harmony High, Osceola High, and St. Cloud High. We met with them on September 6th and September 20th. And on September 20th, they were actually ready to take a vote. And they made a recommendation to move the plan forward as originally presented. However, they did ask that we include taking into consideration to provide transportation for the juniors and the seniors. So we told them we would bring that recommendation forward to the board.
That are continuing where they were?
Yes, so they can finish out
So
where they're
are
at.
you bringing that as a recommendation, or are you bringing that as a suggestion?
Well, it's part of their recommendation. As a school board, you can take all or part of the recommendation.
But it's
So
not your recommendation,
No, that
it's
was
the
the
committee's.
district-wide
Okay.
committees. We did check with transportation. That would take about 15 buses at a cost of $372,000, including basically 15 additional bus drivers. So we are having a driver shortage, so that would be a tough.
We got those everywhere.
That would be tough to fill.
And it was explained to the members of the committee that while we value their input and certainly want to continue to promote and recommend our choice policy, it does require those folks to provide their own transportation. We are severely challenged, as you know, right now in our transportation department. And while we're taking great steps to try to change that, there's no easy remedy. And so I think this would be very, very hard for staff to recommend to the board at this time.
Thank you for that input, Dr. Pace.
Community feedback has surprisingly been at a minimal. Even participation in the meetings were at a minimal.
You haven't been talking to who I've been calling me.
Yeah. Did you engage the Narcoossee community heavily on this?
There were just over 4,269 letters mailed. We
Okay.
received about 10% of those back, which is the norm. We then send them out to the school. We ask that the addresses be verified and sent home, and then the letter sent home with the student. So we've only received, between the 3 committees altogether, we've only received about 30 phone calls. So, and
Okay.
maybe 2 emails. So we have been surprised at the minimal feedback from the community, but I mean, we had 4,200 letters on the street, so it's definitely out there. We also did social media as well. Actually, in the first committee, one of the key players for the Osceola High School Committee actually put it out on Osceola Rants and Raves. He posted all the calendars and the maps. So as you know, that's about another 26,000 people. And we received about 15 questions off of there. And so we have reached out and followed up. The second committee would be the Celebration High School, Poinciana High School group. We met with them on September 18th and October 2nd. And on October 2nd, they recommended to move the plan forward as presented. And with most feedback, on all of the high schools, the #1 question is, do the rising juniors and seniors get to stay? So typically, once we address that as a yes, and that as long as they can provide their transportation.
How many people showed up?
At the celebration one. At the new Tohopa-Caliga High, we never had more than 5 parents present. So it was a very small year
So
for
what happens if
redistricting.
what happens if we have a student who's a rising junior, senior celebration high school,
Yeah.
but has a little brother or sister come, it's gonna be a freshman, they wanna keep the family together?
Then they would go through the choice process. And if we had capacity, we would try to grant it.
We give siblings the priority for filling those.
You know, it's really just, I know everybody knows it, but it's really hard on people when they make a decision to go buy a home based on where their school district is and where they want their children to go, and then have it kind of yanked out from them.
Well, I can tell you in all fairness, if you call my office and then we call the Realtors Association once a year, we do remind them that we redistrict on an annual basis, and we encourage them not to promise parents that by buying a home at a certain location, that they will be allowed to finish their career there.
We know what realtors
Right.
do.
But we do
The
promote
people I've
that.
talked about, no realtor told them, they researched it themselves, they know where to
Right.
look, they know where it's districted.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not, they were not blaming anybody, they're
Right.
saying, you
Should have
know,
asked their realtor.
probably should
He
have.
did our last.
And then the last group that we have is.
I didn't say it was wrong to do it, I just said it's a fact.
Right.
And it's extremely impactful on people's lives that we want parent involvement, we want them to worry about their kids, we want them making these kind of decisions. So when they do, when you have the parents that spend the time doing it, it's impactful to them.
Yes.
When you open a 3,000 students high school, though, there's just absolutely no way that we're not going to impact folks. And so again, I would just, as people have questions, have them call us. We'll walk them through the choice process. Our choice fair is November the 2nd, so it's going to give people an opportunity to see the different opportunities that are out there. And we currently have about 5,000 students attending a school outside of their home zone
I
area.
hadn't
So-
thought about this, but, and board, y'all may say this is completely stupid, but is there any kind of accommodation or something for these people who are being redistricted to have a week advance or something on the redistricting sign-up or whatever you call
They
it?
have priority, I think. Is that right?
For the choice?
Yep.
What we tell them is when they fill out the application, they're supposed to make the statement that they were impacted by redistricting, so that helps Mr. Phelps just process them.
Okay, so
Prioritize
that
them.
does, okay,
Yes,
well then forget what I
absolutely.
said about doing it earlier. I didn't realize we did that, did I?
Yes, we do. The last group that we met with was committee number 3, and that was the group for Denjon Middle to Neptune Middle School.
How many people in?
No parents, well, let me rephrase that. One parent walked in just simply to ask if his rising eighth grader would be allowed to stay back, and we said yes. He left, and so technically we had no parents actually stay and attend the meetings. So their first meeting was actually canceled due to Hurricane Irma. It was the 13th, so 2 days after Irma came through. We had our final 2 meetings. This is also a committee that brought up transportation. So the communities that we're talking about for this group is literally across the street by the Burger King. So you're talking about Magic Landings and right in that area. So right now they get transportation to Neptune. So right now it is our intent that they will get transportation to Denjon, but transportation notified me that the state is revisiting gated communities. So right now the rule is it's all the way to your front door, and if you're in the 2 mile, you have to walk. So the state is looking at saying all gated communities will be measured at the entrance, at the gate. They will no longer take measurements inside of the community. So if that's the situation, a couple of the communities across the street would fall within the 2 mile walk zone. So there are sidewalks, there's the signalized crossing device at 192, they'd walk in front of Bill back, down. So this group did ask that those students continue to receive busing as well, because they did not want to see middle schoolers crossing 192.
That's a pretty valid.
Why would the gate determine the distance? I
Yes.
know it's not you, but
The state is making the assumption, from what we can tell, that everybody will walk to the front, because most gated communities are not even allowing the buses to go into the communities anymore. So Kindred even though not gated, started out on the main road, and then because it got so congested, they're now allowing the buses to go down inside. But hopefully by the end of the month, transportation told me they should have the ruling from the state on those new measurements. So right now they're on a bus, but they may go to a non-bus by the end of the month.
Well, let's find a way how we start the measurement from the backside of our parking lots then.
So that one I do
back of
not
the
have a
property
cost.
line.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just say I have to give some more thought to that, but I feel like that provides a very unique disadvantage to residents that do not live in gated communities. I really do. I feel like it creates an advantage for those that live in a gated community to have that line different. I'm struggling with that one.
Well, we could work for you or against you.
Okay.
This time it's working against us.
Just luck.
Yes.
I'm struggling with the state telling us how they're gonna measure with 192 right there on where they're gonna have middle schoolers cross the road.
Is that DOE policy? Is that where that's happening?
They just told me it's the state making the measurements. I'm assuming it's the DOT.
Okay.
But I can get more information from Sean and send
Yeah,
her
I'd like to know
clarification
more
email.
about that. I want to understand the issue more too.
Okay.
So, anything further, Ms. Blake?
No, I just wanted to bring you up to speed so that when we come to the public hearing, you were aware of what has occurred today.
When's the hearing?
The middle schools will be on November 7th at 5:30. Tohopokalika High will be on the 14th at 5:30, and then Celebration and Poinciana will be at 7 o'clock on the 14th of November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
We'll adjourn this workshop, and we'll pick up the public board meeting at 5:30 sharp.